further ado, I want you to give the warmest possible welcome to our leader and to know that this train is bound for glory, Gerry Adams.
Or some fucking gas, lava, knee card shin. Amidst a late January. You know, you don't have to be the party president, as I think Jonathan O'Brien said. You don't have to be the party president and Sinn Féin to be a leader. There's our leaders, we're all leaders in our party. Couple of days between Naraya Harla and Shockton Shirkoicha. Essentially, you know, parched and practice Tehran, but the Shemi Church about Mission Shaw, Ganabe Kanshui, and Turas Fuji, and Barik in Antrim. Because Hui made Féin and Shin. Marshini made Garn, Hui Shin. Ach dúirt mé agus bhí mé go hánsalair agus tá mé go hánsalair fósfuí seo go raibh rua ag na plín. Bhí rua ag na pés. Agus ní raibh mé aldorach aon privilege speisialta ar bí. But tá sé go hán tábhachtach go bhfuil daoine sásta go bhfuil na plíní ag obair go Trump. My Tassocham Foster go bhfuil an ban úsal Jean McCampbell agus tá China ag crí lár an tráideas é seo. Agus tá mé seo agus tá Sinn Féin dhéanamh ar níl John ábhar a chur I gceart. Tá mé ag tógáil an Sihanna a géirí I a chur John Tussey. But Tassocham Foster go bhfuil Alan Dini Ella for Bass agus Alan Charlie Ella, or Dini for Bass agus Dini Cui Brew. So Kahimage a leg of a January Nihel, a car deep yard. But while you're Foster, but we have a horse, no. Then a Dini a Carbonic to Dom agus McClan, agus Goharada to Comradaha and Sinn Féin agus the Carja. Ella. It's lure, Hansler, who will know the process na Shihana a go forward. Akni Bay and Bua Opera. Attention, please, sir. Here is Shaw, or Bohar, the Shihana, with the Dro Shucky Nice Farm. Agus tá sé the Ceart Opera. During the weekend, when I was in Palace Barracks, wrong decade, when I was in when you're a pensioner, you just continue. When I was in Antrim Barracks, Martin McGuinness spoke about the danger to the process coming from the dark side within the PSNI. And the Taoiseach's response was to suggest that Martin should make a print to the Ombudsman. Now, this is about the future of this island. This isn't about me. I am unimportant. Just bear that in mind. This process of change, this peace process, is bigger than any one individual. This is the Taoiseach's response. This is the Taoiseach's, perhaps first for all I know, public utterance on this matter. Could you imagine him saying that to Peter Robinson? Could you imagine him saying that to David Cameron? I can't. And the Taoiseach, you see, needs to... And I listen and I watch and I engage and I try my best on these matters. The Taoiseach cannot dodge his responsibility or pass the buck on this issue because he's the Taoiseach, not the leader of Fine Gael when he's in that position. He's the Taoiseach. The Irish people, North and South, endorsed the Good Friday Agreement. It's the people's agreement. There are two co-guarantors, the two governments, British Prime Minister and the Irish Taoiseach. And it's been my experience that in this relationship, and this has been for every single, I've worked with others, with, I don't know, 5, 6 Taoiseachs. Some of them have been better than others. But they've always had the same relationship where the British government treats them as junior partners in this enterprise. That's the problem. And they're so pleased to be in the big house, to be around all of this, that they behave like junior partners. And that's what we expect. That doesn't mean being dogmatic, it doesn't mean being provocative, but it does mean standing up for those who threaten the Good Friday Agreement. That's their responsibility. It means overcoming obstacles to progress. It means providing positive leadership. It means reaching out to the unionists on the basis of equality, but understanding also that there are Gaels in the North who see the government here as part of the nation. The government here sees itself as a nation, but we in the 6 counties are part of the nation, part of the island of Ireland. And this is especially true when it comes to dealing with difficult issues, and especially issues of the past. Our party has proposals for dealing with this, but in the Haas talks, we accepted the proposals that were compromise proposals put forward by Richard Haas and Megan O'Sullivan. The unionist parties have not accepted these proposals. The British government have not accepted these proposals. And it's as clear as the nose on your face, when the unionist leaders are allowed room to wriggle, they will wriggle. Every time we've got them to a position of being prepared to embrace change, it's really because they hadn't really an awful lot of options. And that's not to be provocative or insulting, but it's very understanding. When you are bred on a diet of no surrender, not an inch, never, how on earth could you be expected to be able to negotiate? And then, if the British government comes in and negotiates for you, that takes the motivation from you. So, the Irish government has to act. There was a serious attempt last week to charge me. That's fair enough. I'm an activist. That goes with the territory. That's my life, and you just accept the consequences. Had they a charge against me, I would have been charged. Have no doubt about that. And that's an issue which I'm contented enough about. But Sinn Féin is for policing. That no one raise any ripples around this in the government parties or in the Democratic Unionist Party. Peter Robinson last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, said I was the problem in the North, that he was getting on okay, but Sinn Féin's focus was on the South and on issues like austerity and other issues about working class rights and entitlements of deprived people, that I was the problem. Today he said that he was going to propose that Sinn Féin be excluded from the executive, only I clarified our position on policing. So today I am the saviour. McDonald's commitment to policing. They cast doubts on Martin McGuinness's commitment. the policing, when the record shows that there would not be a new policing dispensation if people like Mary Lou and Martin and the rest of us hadn't worked to bring that about. And what is clear, we need accountable, civic, public service policing. What is also clear is we have a wee bit of work to do yet to achieve it. And that's what we are up for doing. Now, I'm also very, very mindful, and I think this is really important to say this, what happened to Jean McConville and to our 10 children was dreadful, was unjust. And that's especially because it was Republicans now. It was in the middle of the war and so on and so forth. But we cannot rail against British injustice inflicted upon people unless we face up to these matters ourselves. And that's why we have tried, and we will continue to try, to work with all of the victims and to try and put in place a victim-centred process to deal with all of these matters. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult for families. It's very difficult for former combatants from all sides. I mean, this state has never dealt with the past. Ever. If you walk to the corner here, on your way out of here, you'll see a building which is shrouded in green maize. There's scaffolding out for them up ahead. That used to be Oriel House. Oriel House is where the Free State Intelligence Branch was based. A lot of Civil War action happened around these streets. 25 Dublin Republicans, including kids, were killed by the Oriel House. Right? The Civil War politics in this state continued for generations and generations and generations because there was no attempt to deal with any of those issues. And even now, 80 or 90 years later, there's still no attempt to deal with those issues. And people die and generations change, so it's a bit easier. And if they're not taught history, people don't know about these matters. What we're trying has never been tried before. The war's only over. We're trying to reach out and trying to deal with these really, really difficult matters in our own time to sort it out. Because while the past is hugely important, it's all about the future. It has to be about the future. And the past cannot be allowed to chain people, to prevent people, to divert people from building a decent future. I met young people on the streets of West Belfast who never saw an armoured car, never saw a tank, never saw a gun, never saw a British soldier, never saw a house raid, never saw anybody being killed, never saw a plastic bullet, never heard a rifle shot, never saw a rat. I met them in my own district, in my own street, in my own home place. They knew, they were watching. They knew there was something wrong. Now, those kids should be guaranteed by our political leaders that they will never have to go through what the children of the McConvilles or indeed any other family went through. And that's Sinn Féin's commitment to build the peace. It's rooted in equality, and that must be the foundation for dealing with these issues, and that must be the starting point for the Taoiseach now. 2 weeks ago, the British Secretary of State criticised what she described as the one-sided focus on state forces. On the very day that I was arrested, she refused a review into the Ballymurphy massacre by British paratroopers of 11 citizens in Ballymurphy, and she refused a review into a bomb accident in which civilians tragically were killed, a bomb planted by the IRA. So she says, in the case of Ballymurphy, she is not going to proceed because it's not in the public interest. So what you have is the British state following, persecuting Republicans while being unable, not prepared to face up to its own responsibilities on these issues, and that isn't good enough. And the Taoiseach has to be about correcting that. Was dúirt mé bámúteoin go bhfuil muid a lorg, ballach nua, shocky nua, mar tá féis ag Sinn Féin, agus tá muid ag gceanamh ar níhil an féis seo a chur le héiríre. And sin an differach mór idir Sinn Féin agus na páirtí eile. A vote for our party is a vote for a future which is based upon. That's the big difference between us and these other parties. It's actually, in these straitened times, an act of political resistance. It's a vote for equality, for freedom, and for a united Ireland. And our opponents, and I want to do now because we have candidates contesting a European election, our opponents say that Sinn Féin is anti-European, because need Sinn Féin or Scotland. Republicanism essentially is a European concept. That's essentially where it comes from. It's about liberty, it's about fraternity, it's about equality. It's about a citizen-centred, rights-based society. It's about building society and protecting the vulnerable and the elderly and the young. It's about, and this is the crux of it, and this is spelled out in the proclamation when it talks about the rights of the people. See, wherever you live, whatever your sexual orientation, whatever your gender, whatever your ability or disability, whether you live in rural Ireland, whatever your skin colour, when you are born, you have rights. And society should be built and moulded to protect and uphold those rights, as opposed to a society based upon the elites, a society based upon privilege, a society based upon it's who you know, a society based upon how much wealth you have. So, we want a different European Union. We want a social Europe. We're against any consensus that is here for cuts, or any consensus that's there in Brussels around austerity and the whole anti-democratic agenda. We're opposed to further fiscal and political union. Now, the citizens of this city don't need an EU MEP representing EU interests here in Dublin. We need a Dublin MEP representing Dublin. Almost 350 local government candidates, biggest number since, well, in our lifetimes anyway, and a third of them are women, and that's not good enough, but it's a big improvement. And we're standing for, as I said, and as Miriam introduced, 4 candidates, a third of them women and a quarter of them is a man. You can be sure of this. If we get Matt, if we get Leah, if we get Martina, if we get Lynn elected, if we get our local candidates across all 32 countries, and it's also important to stress again, and the polls are on the 22nd and the 23rd, but from Ballycastle, as far up as you can go, right up into Rathlin Island, and right down to the tip of Cork, down to the Cove of Cork, and across into Wexford, and up onto Fannet and Donegal, and every single county in between, there'll be a Sinn Féin candidate for you to vote for. And this is about taking on the elites. That's what it's about. That's also, we make no bones about this. It's about building the political strength of our party. It's about charting a different, decent way forward to an equal society based upon unity and genuine independence. But we are ambitious. We're ambitious for the people of this island. We're ambitious for United Ireland. We're ambitious for an end to partition. We're ambitious for a new republic. And we're deeply committed, deeply and absolutely committed to be part, and there are others out there who are not part of any political party who share this same vision to create and to sustain political change. And that's why our opponents are right when they say that we're different. So, when all the noise and all the promises and all the hype and opinion polls and platitudes and patronising phases are finished, it may be just time, many days, is it 16 days or about, just to reflect on who we are, just to reflect on where we're from. We see equality as a right, as I said earlier on. They see equality as a threat, including in the north. And we do have a mighty job to do to persuade unions, because part of the if you want an explanation for why there's increasing unionist numbers of people not voting, it's the leadership that they've been given. So we want to persuade those people, the kids on the Shankill Road or in Ballymena or anywhere else across the 6 counties, that they also have a future, that they have a right, that they have entitlement. When we talk about access to education, when we talk about a home, when we talk about jobs or decent environment, the pursuit of human happiness, they also have that right along with everyone else. And we have to be really, and that's what Martin McGuinness is doing, and there are other folks in the executive. We need to be strong, of course we do. But when you're strong and when you're sure in yourself, then you don't have to be provocative and domineering and dogmatic. Bobby Sands died yesterday, at least on yesterday's date, in prison of Long Cash. And it's worth reflecting, those of us who lived through that period, what he said about all these issues. And he had it right. He said we want freedom when the people have thirst for freedom. The same we see the rising of the moon. So we can't bring about freedom. We can only create conditions where people can take freedom from themselves. That's real democracy, that's real freedom, as opposed to what happened here when one elite was exchanged for another elite and 2 toxic states were established, and all of the scandals and institutionalised violence and abuse and all of what we've seen from Sinn Féin to the Magdalens to Bethany Home to the most dreadful indictment next to partition of this state is forced emigration. That's who we are. We're not perfect, but that's who we are. And we like music, and we like to dance, and we like the crack, and like everybody else, and hurling and football, and rugby and soccer, and tiddlywinks, and so, you see, when you consider the effect of the crash, thousands of lives were destroyed. Let me not exaggerate. 400,000, mostly young people, were forced to emigrate. 400,000. Now, some of our TDs in Shanadori represent rural areas. And so when you go into rural areas, you can escape it in the city here. When you go into rural areas, you see the devastation, the absolute devastation caused by forced emigration. And all the cutbacks. Guard stations being closed, public transport being taken away, small schools being closed, post offices being closed. They want to do fracking, they want to build these huge, monstrous pylons across some of the most beautiful natural landscapes anywhere in the world. You know? We need to be very, very clear in terms of setting out our vision of this being done. People who've never voted Sinn Féin, people who worked all their lives, paid their taxes, now, people who worked all their lives and paid their taxes also vote for Sinn Féin. Who you meet, who invested in pensions, who put their kids through college and who had a decent enough job and who stuck with it. Now they're barely coping. They're barely coping. The parts of the city particularly, but also in rural Ireland, that's not lose sight the poverty in rural Ireland. Places where the Celtic Tiger never went. The Celtic Tiger probably was never in Donegal. Never. They wouldn't know they saw it. But the dreadful damage that's been done, and I would like to go off and write about this sometime if I possibly could. I probably don't have the ability. But our psychic as a people, our literature, our music, it's all based around the place that we were born can't sustain us. So you bring a child into the world in the knowledge that he or she is going to have to leave. And that's it. And of course people should travel, of course they do. But not to be a Skype generation where the mom will talk to the grandchild in Australia through Skype. That's not what this is about. The rub is, you see, is that the political elites and the other elites, they just reshuffle the deck. Business as usual. For Fianna Fáil, business as usual. For Fine Gael, business as usual. For Labour, business as usual. For the bankers, business as usual. For the developers, for the speculators, all business as usual. And I remember well during the Celtic Tiger, because we weren't against the Celtic Tiger, we said that the wealth should be utilised to provide sustainable jobs, to provide housing, to provide schools, to provide infrastructure, to provide decent hospitals. We were pooh-hooed. We were told, no, you're illiterates. Once the Christ came, they wouldn't socialise the wealth during the boom years, no problem socialising the debt. And the people got it in the neck. And that has to be changed. And you see, here's the thing. The Orange State has gone. It was one party rule, that's gone. Here it was sort of 2.5 party rule. You know, it was Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour coming in and out of it. That's finished, folks. Let me tell you, the landscape is genuine Republican politics. This is the time for informed, educated, participatory discussion and involvement of people. This is a time to build a Sinn Féin party right across this island. That's why I say we make no apologies for saying this election is also part of that. One party, united, central, national leadership, democratic, transparent, no partition in Sinn Féin, no border in Sinn Féin, one national party right across the entire island with good Republican alternatives to what they're saying. Now, 98 years ago, I think most of the leaders, maybe English could tell me, maybe one or two were left, but one who was left, most of the leaders of the 1916 Rising have been executed, or 17 executed in all, and Roger Casement some months later in London. But James Connolly was very badly wounded, and James Connolly was in a stretcher. And the Irish Independent editorialised and called for the execution of James Connolly, who was duly executed, the last of the leaders. And the Irish Independent described the Rising as criminal madness. Now, not all journalists in the Irish Independent are bad. We've seen they can redeem themselves in time, you know. And as I said to him, because he has a past, doesn't mean he doesn't have a future. I think there's a decent spot that he speaks his mind, and I'm only joking about that. But the point I'm making is that the Irish Independent has been at this anti-republican vilification for a very, very long time. Let's not be, put off by that or distracted. They're not new. Let's stick to our agenda. Let them play their game. We play our game. And it's a progressive gospel, and it's about hope, and it's about a new future. It's also, I think, important, as we approach this next running, and I say, who are we? We're very clear about who we are. We're Republicans, we're Democrats, we know about our roots, but we also know about the great potential. We have huge confidence in our people, in the potential and the possibilities of the people of this island. And I spoke about Bobby Sands. We had just before Bobby's hunger strike, we had friends of ours, friends of mine anyway, people like Mary Doyle and Sheila Darnell and Sinead Moore and others, women in Armagh on hunger strike, and Maria Farrell. And they were tough, hard times. See, we don't have to do that. Very taken by what Matt Carthy said at a big conference we did recently. He said, somebody said to him, you're putting up with an awful lot, you're making awful sacrifices. And he said, I'm not making any sacrifices. He said, you are, like young kids, and you're on the road all the time, and so on. He said, Martina Anderson's the woman who makes sacrifices. 14 years in a jail. If this was 19 and 13, we could be in Sheriff Street with the working poor fighting against the bosses. That's who we are. And if this was 19 and 16, we could be in the GPO with James Connolly and Padraig Pearse. So we don't have to do that. So thanks to the success of the peace process and the efforts of many, many good people, it's not as dangerous as that. Our job is to keep standing up against the bigots and the negative elements and the sinister elements. And our job is all the time, nobody's getting out of bed in the morning to be involved in the struggle, and that's it's about empowering people. Our job is all the time to try and change the conditions in people's lives. Government today imposed a water tax. A water tax. I was half joking when I said, why don't they bring in a tax about air? Well, that seems reasonable. Do you think so? I was minded of Swift's a modest proposal. And I put it to the Taoiseach that this is what they got, but although Swift was being satirical, he's much more eloquent than the Taoiseach. But I said to the Taoiseach today, do you think people are stupid? Do you think people are amadons? No. They are going to force on people. They say, and Labour, I wouldn't sense Labour out to negotiate for a bottom out at the corner of the Do you think that people don't see this as just an attempt to get a fake leaf to get through the election? No. It's just not fair. So we're about trying to do something about all of that. And there'll be ups and downs, and the peace process road is going to be bumpy, and there'll be sharp turns, and people will put up obstacles, and so on and so forth. But I have a sense, you see, that these changes are almost palpable, and it never happens, you see. It never happens just in one big, like in a film, one big scene. If you look back at the old footage of the civil rights struggle, you'll see tens of thousands of people marching. I remember it was one. Barney McFadden or Bridget Bond or Dr. Cluskey or Aidan Corrigan standing. One person. asking for decent housing, one person asking for an end to the Special Powers Act. And they were seen as a bit cranky. You know, I met old Pete Seeger, who was still standing up until 2 years ago on his own every Saturday for an hour at a roundabout. Still going out with one placard. You know? You're old enough to remember Alice's Restaurant, and if you don't go in bed or get it on YouTube and listen to it. Listen to it on iTunes. Because it happens in small ways, happens in wee ways. 1 joins 2, 2 joins 4, 5 joins. It's bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the Republic is made every single day. Friendships are made, respect is earned, love is shown, tolerance is demonstrated every single day. Not in just one big scene, as I said earlier. So we have a job of work to do. I say this at every election, so some of you have heard me say this before. We may not get any of these folks elected. Okay? And that's okay. That's the people's decision. And I will wake up the next morning and dust myself down like the rest of us, and we get on with it. But there's nothing worse than being bait and knowing that it's your fault. We had Michelle Gilderby with us last night. I asked her how many votes did she win in Fermanagh South. And this is a historic seat of Bobby Sands. She said 4. Now, I was the person who got those 4 votes. That's what she said. But just imagine that she had lost the seat. Just imagine that the seat that Bobby earned, people didn't even know. There was no economic or other benefit for them in voting for him. Just imagine if that had happened. So don't wake up on the 24th or the 25th and say to yourself, I didn't knock enough doors. I didn't contact enough people. I didn't put out enough leaflets. I didn't make enough phone calls. Don't do that. Give it your best effort, and then the best can do no better. And I also want to recommend and we have a large crowd here. And some people don't like canvassing, and some people don't have the confidence, and some people are too busy in their own lives or have a disability and don't want to run up and down the doors. But everybody can contact, without leaving your own armchair, 10 people or 20 people. Just imagine how many people that would be if we all just sat down and drew up a wee list. So I would ask people to resolve to do that. Tonight, not tomorrow morning, tonight sit down and write up a list of 10 people you're going to contact, and you're going to say, wherever they come from, vote for the Sinn Féin candidate. And if they say they'll do it, say to them, could you get 10 people? And ask them to do the same thing. And keep doing that and keep building that. I'm going to tell you what happened to me when I was coming out of the barracks. And I got told off for slagging about these matters, but there you go. I've always found it's much easier to get into a barracks than to get out of a barracks. But the PSNI, at the end, guy says to me, there's a bit of trouble. Maybe very dangerous getting you out of here. And I said, what's the story? And he said, well, there's a crowd outside the front gates, and they're shouting and roaring. And I said, well, can you move them? I don't mean to beat up on them, just move them. If they were Republicans, you would move them. He says they're loyalists. And I said, well, he says, and they're carrying flags. And they're carrying pictures of Mark McGuinness's friend, the Queen. Now, that's also who we are. Because Martin McGuinness, a staunch Republican, a proud Republican, has no time for monarchy or elites, or for any vestige of privilege or any involvement of British government or establishment in our affairs. Went to England to shake hands out of respect for those who do respect the Queen, who do see her out, not out of his own space to do that, and that's who we are. That's who we are, trying to send very, very clear messages to our neighbours and our potential friends that we will respect their sense of symbol and their sense of identity and so on and so forth. But anyway, back to the barracks. I said, what are you going to do? And he said, well, I said, I have the solution. I have the man who can get me out of here. He said, who's that? I said, the super shinner. And he said to me, is it a bird? Is it a plane? I said, no, it's Gerry Kelly. Gerry Kelly came in, and we went out, and here I am. Having said all of that, the real opposition over there in Leinster House is Creevin O'Quillan, Mary Lou MacDonald. That's what Mary Lou does in the committee. She puts it up to the elites. That's what Creevin does, it's what Jonathan does, it's what Trevor does, what Micheál does, it's what Sandra does. Whoever else I've missed out, I apologise. That's what we do. We are the real opposition in Leinster House. And the Fianna Fáil party, certainly at the leadership level, doesn't have any credibility on any of these issues whatsoever. So we want to send these four comrades into the European Parliament to stand up for us and for people and to do what our folks in the Oireachtas and our folks in the Assembly are doing. And it's a great honour to represent our party in any capacity. Just to be a party member, I think is a great privilege, but to be elected by your peers is something else. So they're sticking themselves out. I think we can depend on them. They will not let us down, be sure of that. This Republican Assembly here this evening cannot let them down. They have said that they will represent the people, but we can get the people to vote for them. That's our job. Now, can we do that? Yeah. Is it possible for us in this city, because Mary Lou MacDonald didn't let the people down, Barbara Brune didn't let the people down, is it possible for us in this city to get Lynn Boylan elected? Yeah.